What if Tensura, the 8th Primordial? Author, 1010-100. When Haru of the Minamoto dies standing after a heroic effort during the Genpei War, he is reincarnated in the world of that time. I got reincarnated as a slime. As a demon? In the Underworld? As a bottom feeder? Watch Haru climb the ranks of the demon ladder, and maybe someday, stand toe-to-toe with the monsters of the Underworld and the Cardinal World. Chapter 44. I don't want you to die. What's wrong with him? Shizue asked with deep curiosity. She was still standing where Bordeaux had been sitting moments earlier, her brows knit together in confusion. According to history, Minamoto no Yoritamo was a legend. Bordeaux scoffed lightly. Trust me, whatever the history books say about him, he was nothing like that when I was alive. That bully. He waved the topic away. But putting that aside, Shizue, you and I had an agreement. I know, Shizue replied immediately. Ifrit, right? A smile tugged at Bordeaux's lips. Then we shouldn't waste any more time. Ginny frowned. What's happening now? She glanced between the two of them. You both like to keep saying things like this and completely leaving us out of it. Jenny nodded beside her. A little context wouldn't hurt. Shizue turned toward them. Haru-san wants to fight Ifrit. Bordeaux raised a hand. Please don't refer to me as Haru. I go by Bordeaux, and I'd appreciate it if you called me the same. Shizue dipped her head slightly. My apologies. Then, Bordeaux-san wants to fight Ifrit. Really, huh? Ginny muttered. Bordeaux stood. Well then, Silver Wings. It truly was nice meeting you both. His tone was calm, decisive. But the time for us to part has finally come. Shizue, Ginny, and Jenny rose as well. Ginny and Jenny bowed deeply. Bordeaux-sama, Ginny said. Once again, thank you for helping us and for saving our lives. Even if you don't want us as subordinates, Jenny added earnestly, we will dedicate our lives to preaching your gospel. Bordeaux stared at them, visibly confused. What are you even talking about? He shook his head. Never mind. He stepped up to Shizue and placed a hand on her shoulder. In the next instant, both of them vanished as they teleported out of the chamber. The chamber fell silent. For a full minute, Ginny and Jenny simply stood there. That was crazy, Ginny finally said. I know, Jenny replied. To think we were saved by a literal primordial demon. Ginny tilted her head. Do you think all primordials are like that? Maybe we've been viewing them in too negative a light. Jenny shot her a sharp look. You're walking down a very dangerous line of thought, sister. Primordials should still be feared. She paused, then softened slightly. I just think Bordeaux-sama might be different. Ginny looked toward the empty space where Bordeaux and Shizue had disappeared. He really is, isn't he? She murmured. Elsewhere, deep within the Jura forest, Bordeaux and Shizue materialized. Towering trees surrounded them, their canopies blotting out most of the sky. The air was heavy with magicules, the forest quiet and untouched by human presence. Shizue looked around. Is this where you plan to battle? The Jura forest. Yes, Bordeaux replied, turning back to her. You wouldn't want innocent civilians to get involved, right? So this is the perfect location. Unless you want to go to a populated area. She waved her hands quickly. No, I wasn't complaining. This is actually perfect. Good, Bordeaux said as he began stretching casually. Then take off the mask. Shizue hesitated for a second before speaking. Do you really think you can defeat Ifrit? She asked, then quickly added. It's not that I'm doubting you or anything, it's just that. Bordeaux studied Shizue in silence for a full minute before speaking. Wouldn't it be more beneficial for Ifrit to defeat me? He asked calmly. Do you perhaps not want me to die? Shizue answered without hesitation. Yes, I do not wish for you to die. Behind the mask, she blushed and inwardly thought, this is such a weird feeling, but I really don't want Bordeaux-san to die. Bordeaux blinked, genuinely taken aback. Such a quick reply. He tilted his head. But Shizue, am I not a demon that should be vanquished? Should a top-tier adventurer be telling a demon that she does not want it to die? "You're not like other demons," she replied. "You present yourself as evil, but you aren't." Her gaze sharpened. "I should have realized it back in the hall. When you said you planned on killing everyone. You didn't actually mean it, did you?" Bordeaux turned away with a careless shrug. "Oh, I meant that." "Liar," Shizue said flatly. Bordeaux choked on his words at being found out. He turned back to her, scratching the back of his head. "This is why I hate women," he muttered. "Always so attentive." "That's exactly why I asked if you could defeat Ifrit," Shizue said. "Spirits are known to have an advantage against demons. And Ifrit is a superior spirit." She paused. "If you aren't certain you can defeat him, I won't remove my mask. And besides that, if Ifrit were to kill you, it would take me time to regain control, especially in my current state. There's a real risk of him rampaging." Bordeaux let out a slow sigh. "It's a foolish question. I don't have a physical body, so it might take a bit longer," he admitted. "But I'm confident in my ability to take him on." His eyes gleamed faintly. "It's true that spirits have an advantage over demons. But does that still matter in the face of overwhelming power?" Shizue watched him for a few seconds longer. Then she exhaled. "Fine. I understand." She straightened. "I'll remove the mask." A smile spread across Bordeaux's face. "Please do." "Good luck," Shizue said. She lifted her hands and removed the mask. Her body began to rise from the ground. Fire poured from her eyes and mouth, swirling violently as her form was engulfed in flames. The heat intensified, the air warping as her figure twisted and expanded until the transformation was complete. The superior spirit Ifrit emerged. Finally, Ifrit growled. "I'm free." His voice boomed with delight. "Curse that Shizue Izawa. I shall now have all the fun in the world, spreading chaos wherever I please." A voice cut through his laughter. Bordeaux stepped forward. A menacing smile etched across his face. "If you want to cause chaos in this world, Ifrit," he said calmly, "then first, you'll have to kill me." Chapter 45. Bordeaux versus Fire Spirit Ifrit. Ifrit furrowed his brows at the intruder who had disturbed his celebration. "A demon." Bordeaux looked Ifrit up and down, his gaze calm, almost curious, as though examining a rare specimen. "So this is how Ifrit looks in person, huh? Amazing." Ifrit's expression hardened and he said, "Demon, do not bother me, and I shall not bother you. We shall go our separate ways. I do not wish to entertain you with my limited free time." Bordeaux smiled lightly. "Now that won't do, Ifrit. I didn't ask Shizue to bring you out just so I could let you go." Ifrit narrowed his eyes slightly. "You were the one who had Shizue free me," he said. "And why would you do that?" Bordeaux raised a finger as if the answer were obvious. "So I can talk to you," Ifrit scoffed. "And what exactly would a demon want to talk to a superior spirit about?" Bordeaux's tone was simple and unembellished. "I command you to coexist with Shizue, and let her use your power without you trying to ruin her life." Ifrit paused for a second. Then he broke into laughter, the sound sharp and mocking. "Is this a joke?" he asked seriously. Bordeaux shook his head. "No, I'm being as serious as I've ever been." Ifrit sneered. "And why would I do that? What could possibly compel me to agree to something so ridiculous?" Bordeaux tilted his head. "Because I told you to," he said calmly. "And because Shizue is a pretty girl, and I hate seeing pretty girls in pain." Ifrit clicked his tongue. "I don't know why I entertained you in the first place," he said. "Perhaps it's because you freed me. For that reason alone, I'll let you live even after daring to speak such blasphemy to me, a superior spirit, while you are nothing more than a mere demon." He then turned, intending to leave. But then, a barrier suddenly descended from above, sealing the space with a heavy, oppressive presence. Ifrit stopped short. "A barrier?" Behind him, Bordeaux's voice rang out. It was now cold and stripped of its earlier amusement. His smile as well was gone. "I don't remember asking you, Ifrit," he said. "I'm pretty sure I commanded you." Ifrit turned to face him. "What are you intending to do?" Bordeaux answered without hesitation. Beat the living crap out of you until you submit. He added, almost casually, and I'm kind of in a hurry. My magical form can't last much longer, so I'll have to make quick work of you. Ifrit studied Bordeaux closely, searching his face for even the slightest sign of humor. There was none. His anger flared. Is a demon telling me he can make quick work of me? Ifrit snarled. Do you not know that spirits have an advantage over demons? Bordeaux stretched, his face serious, his presence steady. I'm tired of hearing that statement, he said. If you truly believe you have an advantage over me, Ifrit. His eyes locked onto the spirit. Then why don't you use it? Then I'll show you, Ifrit shouted. Ifrit thrust his palm forward, and a massive torrent of flames erupted toward Bordeaux at blinding speed. The air warped from the heat alone. Bordeaux reacted instantly. A multi-functional barrier formed in front of him, solidifying just in time. The flames crashed into it with overwhelming force, pushing him backward. His feet scraped hard against the ground as he was forced several meters back, the barrier groaning under the pressure. Ifrit stared into the inferno, eyes narrowed, trying to see if the attack had done its job. The flames began to die down, and something invisible sliced straight through him. Ifrit's eyes widened as his body was split cleanly in half. Shock flashed across his face before his form immediately regenerated, flames knitting his body back together. But before he could react, 3 more unseen slashes rushed toward him. He snarled and released a burst of intense heat, burning through the incoming attacks and dispersing them midair. Then, Bordeaux vanished. Ifrit barely had time to register the distortion behind him before Bordeaux reappeared at his back. Ifrit spun around in shock, and Bordeaux grabbed his face. Without a word, he slammed Ifrit straight into the ground. The impact created a massive crater, the earth collapsing inward as Bordeaux followed through. His hand glowed briefly, and with cleave, he cut Ifrit's body into multiple small cubes in an instant. But instead of falling apart, Ifrit's body dissolved into flames. The fire slipped through Bordeaux's grasp and reformed several meters away. In the next moment, 3 Ifrits materialized, forming a perfect triangle around Bordeaux. All 3 raised their palms at once. An insane barrage of fire erupted, completely engulfing Bordeaux. The flames raged for several seconds. Then, a figure stepped out of the inferno. Bordeaux emerged from the fire with only slight irritation on his face. Smoke rolled off his body as he stopped a good distance away from Ifrit. He dusted himself off slowly, clearly acknowledging that the attack had connected. He clicked his tongue. The speed and intensity of the flames are far worse than when I faced Shizue, he said calmly. So this is her potential if she were to truly merge with you. Ifrit grit his teeth, frustration clear on his face. What are you? He demanded. No greater demon should survive that torrent. Are you an archdemon? Bordeaux shrugged lightly. Technically, you're right. He brushed the thought aside and clicked his tongue again, his expression sharpening. My body's running out. I'll have to make this quick. Don't underestimate me, Ifrit shouted. All 3 Ifrits fired another wave of flames simultaneously. Bordeaux smiled. You're not the only one who can shoot fire. A massive construct formed in front of him, a flamethrower, and an equally overwhelming stream of flames burst forth. The 2 attacks collided, and a colossal explosion of fire erupted, consuming the battlefield in roaring heat. Ifrit recoiled, eyes wide. What is that? It's a flamethrower, Bordeaux replied plainly. Then he smiled wider. Want to see something cooler? 3 small spheres materialized in his free hand. A deep sense of unease crawled up Ifrit's spine. What is that? Bordeaux's grin turned sharp. Want to play catch? I'll throw first. He hurled the 3 spheres forward. They weren't just balls, they were mini nukes. As they reached Ifrit's position, Bordeaux fired another burst from the flamethrower. The spheres detonated instantly, triggering a catastrophic explosion. The blast tore through the area, flattening everything within a massive radius as fire and shockwaves consumed the forest. A short while passed. The flames receded. The destruction settled. Ifrit lay on the ground, bleeding, his body struggling to maintain cohesion. He clutched his chest, breathing heavily. Slowly, he looked up at Bordeaux, shock and disbelief written across his face. "You," Ifrit rasped. "You are no simple archdemon." His eyes trembled. "You are one of the progenitors, a primordial." Bordeaux smiled faintly. "Oh, you're quite smart to have figured that out." He looked down at Ifrit, calm and unhurried. "Now that you know that information," he said, "what shall you do?" Chapter 46. Like a god. Ifrit steadied himself, flames flickering unevenly around his form as he looked at Bordeaux with clear irritation. "To think a demon of your caliber was here," he said. "How annoying. And those weapons you keep conjuring, those are not normal either." "What are they?" Bordeaux simply smiled. "They're conjured through my unique skill, prototype," he said calmly. "It allows me to rebuild anything I can remember." Ifrit frowned. "What a ridiculous power. But that doesn't explain those weapons. Anything you can remember? Where would you have even seen things like that before?" "That's a very long story," Bordeaux replied lightly. "And unfortunately, I don't have the time." Ifrit pushed himself upright despite his injuries. "Well, it doesn't matter," he said. "Even if you are stronger than me, spirits cannot die. Kill me here, and I will simply be reborn." Bordeaux stared at him for a moment. Then he sighed, disappointment clear in his voice. "Ifrit, are you perhaps slow?" Ifrit's brows furrowed. "What are you talking about?" Bordeaux raised a hand and pointed at him. "Are you really not going to question why you're bleeding?" Ifrit froze. He looked down. Blood, real blood, was dripping from his body. His eyes widened as the realization struck him. As a superior spirit, he wasn't supposed to bleed. "What did you do?" Ifrit demanded. Bordeaux began walking toward him, his steps slow and deliberate. "You see, Ifrit," he said, "aside from prototype, I possess another skill." Ifrit swallowed. "Another skill?" "It's called Soul Scholar," Bordeaux answered, lifting a finger. "It allows me to interact with." He paused. A sinister smile spread across his face. "And damage the soul." Ifrit felt a chill run down his spine. "All of my attacks so far," Bordeaux continued, "weren't aimed at your body. They were aimed at your soul." The unease twisted into panic. Ifrit reacted instinctively, sending a wave of fire toward Bordeaux. Bordeaux didn't even move his hands. He blew upward. The fire was redirected, scattered harmlessly into the air. "Pointless," Bordeaux said. "Your soul is already in tatters, Ifrit. Your flames can't do anything to me now." Ifrit staggered backward. "Get away from me." In the next instant, Bordeaux vanished. Ifrit barely registered the movement before Bordeaux reappeared in front of him, grabbed his face, and smashed him into the ground. The impact echoed through the forest as Bordeaux pinned him down, his smile twisted and vicious. "Now," Bordeaux said softly, "back to what I commanded you to do when we first met. Do you remember it?" "I will not obey a mere demon," Ifrit snarled. "Who do you think you?" Bordeaux touched him. Not his body, his soul. Ifrit's eyes went wide as an indescribable sensation tore through him. "My," Bordeaux said casually, "you have quite a powerful soul. Not on my level, but still impressive." "What are you doing?" Ifrit cried. "Let go." Bordeaux's smile deepened. "Actually, since I'm already here, I might as well help myself to your abilities. Don't you think?" He pressed further. Ifrit felt something being ripped from him. His abilities, engraved into his very soul, copied and transplanted onto Bordeaux's own soul. Bordeaux released him and straightened. He opened his free hand. Intense fire erupted from his palm. He chuckled. "Look, Ifrit," Bordeaux said. "I can shoot fire now too." Ifrit was left wide-eyed. Impossible, he thought. He copied my intrinsic abilities. How is that even possible? And why do his flames feel more intense than mine? Bordeaux watched his expression change, fire flickering lazily in his palm. "Do you see now, Ifrit?" he said calmly. With my ability to interact with the soul, I'm practically a god. Wouldn't you agree? He stepped closer. As he did, an invisible pressure crushed down on Ifrit's very existence. It wasn't physical. It was far worse. It felt as though his soul itself was being squeezed, compressed, on the verge of shattering. And as a god, Bordeaux continued evenly, I can completely wipe you from existence. Don't you think? Ifrit screamed. The pain was overwhelming, far beyond anything he had ever experienced. Okay, he shouted. I'll listen. I'll try to coexist with Shizue Izawa. Bordeaux raised an eyebrow. Try. The pressure increased. I don't like the word try, Bordeaux said coolly. I prefer I'll do it. Ifrit nodded frantically. Desperation etched across his face. Yes, I'll do it. Bordeaux tilted his head. I'll do it, Bordeaux-sama. Oh, of course, Ifrit said quickly. I'll do it, Bordeaux-sama. Ifrit had feared almost nothing in his long existence. But now, faced with the reality that he could be erased completely with no rebirth and no return, he broke. He accepted it and he submitted. Bordeaux's voice turned cold. Remember this, he said. Shizue is your master. You are her servant. You will give every drop of your power to her, even if that leaves you with nothing. Are we clear? Ifrit nodded again and again. Yes, I understand. Bordeaux released him. He straightened, his smile returning as if nothing had happened. See? That wasn't so hard, was it? Ifrit stared at him as if looking at a monster far worse than any demon he had ever known. I have to stay on good terms with this demon, Ifrit thought desperately. If I anger him, I'll cease to exist. In that moment, he resolved himself. He would help Shizue in every way possible. Anything just to avoid Bordeaux's wrath. I'm done with you now, Bordeaux said casually. Give Shizue back her body. Relief flooded Ifrit so strongly it felt like a second life. Right away, Bordeaux-sama, he said quickly. He wanted to leave, to escape that presence as soon as possible. The flames surrounding his body began to collapse inward, spiraling tightly until they vanished completely. In their place, an unconscious Japanese girl appeared, falling gently to the ground. Moments later, Shizue's eyes fluttered open. She blinked a few times, disoriented. I'm back, she murmured. Welcome back, a voice replied. Shizue turned her head, searching, until her eyes found him. Bordeaux-san, she said softly. He smiled. You won't understand until a few minutes from now, he said lightly. But you can thank me with a kiss once I get a physical body. Shizue's face burned crimson. Huh? What are you talking about? Bordeaux chuckled. Oh, and one more thing. I'd like to ask you for a favor. She stiffened. If a massive war ever breaks out anywhere in this world, he said, please summon me. He waved once. Thank you. Bye. And just like that, Bordeaux vanished from her sight. Wait, Shizue shouted. You can't just say something like that and then leave. There was no response. She clenched her fists and glared at the empty space where he had been standing, frustration written clearly across her face. Chapter 47. It's not stealing, it's borrowing. Shizue lingered where Bordeaux had vanished, her gaze fixed on the empty air. A small smile slowly formed on her lips. She reached for her mask, fingers curling around it, ready to put it back on, but then she stopped. Something felt strange. Ifrit wasn't pushing back. There was no pressure in her chest, no raging heat clawing at her consciousness. For the first time she could remember, her body felt light, free, almost fragile in a way she had never experienced before. Her eyes widened slightly. What's happening? She murmured. Bordeaux's words surfaced in her mind. You won't understand until a few minutes later, but you can thank me with a kiss when I get a physical body. A faint blush crept onto her cheeks. You might have been joking, Bordeaux-san, she said quietly. But, promise, when I see you again, I'll give you a firm kiss. Her face turned even redder. But will I even have the courage? she added softly. Almost unconsciously, her hands rose to her cheeks as she shifted her weight from one foot to the other. I don't know. Suddenly, she straightened, stiffening. What am I doing? She muttered. The realization hit her all at once. She had never allowed herself moments like this. Born into a war-torn era, happiness had never been something she could afford. And after Ifrit had been forced into her body, she had suppressed what little emotion she had left because any fluctuation risked losing control. But now, Ifrit wasn't fighting her anymore, and there was no doubt in her mind that Bordeaux had something to do with it. Did Bordeaux negotiate with Ifrit so I could be free? She wondered. The thought lingered until she finally took a proper look around her. Her breath caught. The ground before her was scorched black, the earth cracked and broken. A massive crater stretched out ahead, the land carved away as if something catastrophic had struck it head-on. It looked as though Veldora himself had unleashed his blast breath upon the forest. What kind of battle occurred here? She whispered. Her eyes traced the devastation. Is this what a normal battle between a demon and a spirit looks like? She swallowed. Unbelievable. 3 days later, in the kingdom of Blumend, a firm knock echoed against the door of the guildmaster's office. Come in, Fuse called. The door opened, and a short, blonde adventurer stepped inside. He gave a polite nod. Excuse my intrusion, guildmaster. Fuse looked up and smiled faintly. I welcome an intrusion from one of our rank adventurers anytime, Summer. The man named Summer returned the smile thinly. In that case, I won't be kind. Fuse straightened slightly. I see. So what brings you here today? You almost never come to see me, so it must be important. It is, Summer replied seriously. About 3 days ago, I was completing a request near the Jura forest. That's when I heard it. Fuse's brows knit together. Heard what? A battle, Summer said. I thought about getting closer, but my instincts screamed at me not to, so I listened. He paused. A few moments later, there was an explosion, one that covered most of that area of the Jura forest. Fuse broke into a sweat. That massive. Not just massive, Summer said. Dangerous. I've never witnessed the ancient dragon Veldora's blast breath myself, but I don't think it would be far off from what I felt. Fuse's thoughts spiraled. Did you find the source? He asked quickly. Summer shook his head. No. I waited until the sound stopped, just to be sure it was safe. When I finally went in, he hesitated. There was nothing, no trace of the combatants, just utter devastation. Summer continued, his tone steady but serious. I wanted to continue the investigation myself, but judging by the terrain alone, the monsters that were battling there were anything but ordinary. I decided it was better to return immediately, make a report, and wait for further instructions from you. Fuse leaned back slightly, fingers pressing against his temple. Is there any chance it could have been Veldora? Summer shook his head without hesitation. I doubt it, Guildmaster. If Veldora had broken free from his seal, it would have become public knowledge the moment it happened. I know, Fuse muttered, rubbing his forehead in frustration. That was just me reaching. He exhaled slowly. Honestly, it would have been better if it was Veldora. Even if we couldn't do anything about it, at least we'd know the cause. His eyes hardened. I absolutely despise the unknown. Summer nodded. Then what are the next steps, Guildmaster? Fuse straightened. Summer, I'm putting you in charge of this operation. Assemble your own team and launch a full investigation. He paused, then added, make it clear to anyone you recruit that this is official guild business. I don't want rumors or exaggerated stories spreading. Yes, Guildmaster, Summer said as he rose from his seat. Summer, Fuse added before he could leave. Summer turned back. Be careful out there, Fuse said firmly. If the threat proves too great, or if poking your nose becomes too risky, retreat. Your lives are more important than any mission. Summer gave a sharp nod. Understood. He exited the office, the door closing softly behind him. Fuse slumped back into his chair, staring up at the ceiling. It's just one thing after another with this world. He reached for a caller and dialed. After a brief pause, the call connected. Fuse, a voice said. Why are you calling me? King Drum, Fuse replied. We need to meet. It's important. There was a short silence on the other end. Come to the castle, King Drum finally said. All right, Fuse replied, ending the call. He stood, grabbed his coat, and headed for the door, leaving the office behind. See elsewhere, within an elegant castle, Zonda cautiously made his way toward Violet's wine cellar. Strange sounds had reached his ears, and he already had a suspicion he didn't like. He peeked inside. I knew it. Bordeaux, Zonda shouted. You're trying to steal Violet-sama's wine again. Bordeaux glanced over casually, one hand already hovering over a rack of bottles. Chef, steal is a very strong word, he said calmly. I'm merely borrowing. Zonda's eye twitched. When you borrow something, you bring it back. And according to my knowledge, you've never once returned any of the wine you take. Bordeaux continued trailing his fingers along the bottles, unfazed. Relax. Violet is my sister. She understands. No, she doesn't. Zonda snapped. She literally fumes every time you do this. Bordeaux waved him off. That's just her personality. No, it's not. Zonda shot back. You barely even know her. Chapter 48. Pissing them off. Bordeaux paid Zonda no mind. He continued drifting his fingers along the rows of carefully preserved bottles, the soft clink of glass echoing faintly through the cellar. His movements were slow, deliberate, and almost leisurely until his hand stopped. A smile spread across his face. This one looks good, he said, pulling the bottle free and studying it under the dim cellar light. The color drained from Zonda's face. Bordeaux, no, Bordeaux-sama, he said weakly. His voice trembled despite himself. Anyone but that one. A memory flashed vividly through Zonda's mind. The first time Violet had tasted that wine. She had taken a single sip, and instead of spitting it out like she always did, her eyes had widened. She had shouted, loudly and without restraint, that it was her favorite. That alone had been shocking enough. Violet never loved a wine on the first taste. If she returned and found this bottle missing, forget the purple lineage. The entire underworld would be in danger. Bordeaux tilted his head slightly, noticing Zonda's reaction. Why? He asked casually. Zonda swallowed hard. Because that is Violet-sama's favorite wine. You cannot, under any circumstances, take it. Bordeaux's grin widened. Her favorite wine? He repeated. Then it must be good. Zonda's eyes widened in horror. Huh? Did you not hear what I said? If you take that, she will kill everyone. Don't worry, Bordeaux replied lightly. Just tell her I took it. He lifted the bottle slightly. I'll be at Blank's castle. If she has a problem with it, she can come find me. And just like that, he vanished. Zonda stood frozen in place, staring at the empty space where Bordeaux had been. He's gone, he muttered. He really just left. His shoulders slumped. Shit, if only I could beat him in a fight. Bordeaux materialized before a massive set of ornate doors. A satisfied smile tugged at his lips as he pushed them open without hesitation. Oh, big sister, he called out cheerfully. Where are you? The voice echoed through the hall. Moss, who had been sitting cross-legged on a sofa, immediately rose to his feet, thinking an intruder had entered. But the moment his eyes landed on Bordeaux, his expression twisted into clear annoyance. It's you again, Moss said flatly. At this point, you might as well move in. Bordeaux halted mid-step and looked at Moss, studying him for a moment. Then he sighed. You know, he said, sometimes when I look at you, all I feel is pity. Ha! Moss replied, genuinely confused. Bordeaux shook his head. You're already so short. And then you go and get a skill that only makes you even shorter. He gestured vaguely. Basically, you can never see things from a high view. Moss scoffed. Haha, you think you're so funny. He crossed his arms. I'll have you know being short has plenty of perks compared to being tall. And even if I wanted to change my height, I could. He straightened proudly. This height is perfect for serving Blanc-sama. I see, Bordeaux said. He paused, then added, speaking of Blanc, do you know where she is? Moss let out a tired sigh. 3rd floor, having her tea. Oh, Bordeaux replied. Okay, thanks. He immediately started walking toward the stairs. Moss called after him. You probably shouldn't disturb Blanc-sama while she's having tea. Bordeaux waved a hand dismissively without turning around. It's fine. Her little brother is visiting. She should be over the moon. Moss watched him go, shaking his head. He really is an idiot who never listens to others, he muttered softly. A few moments later, Bordeaux reached the 3rd floor. He made his way down the quiet corridor, the soft carpet muffling his footsteps, until he stopped in front of the tea room. Without knocking, he pushed the door open. Sister! Blanc flinched. The sudden intrusion startled her enough that the teacup in her hand tilted, warm liquid spilling across the magazine resting on her lap. The pages darkened instantly, steam curling upward. Bordeaux, completely oblivious, stepped further inside. I borrowed some top-class wine from Violet, he said casually. I thought maybe we could share it and play some games. Some sibling bonding exercises. Blanc didn't answer. Instead, a cold, oppressive aura began to seep out from her, filling the room like creeping frost. Bordeaux finally noticed. He swallowed. Blanc, are you okay? Blanc slowly turned her head toward him. Her expression was flat, irritated and dangerous. Did Moss not tell you? She asked calmly. Not to disturb my tea session? Well, he did, Bordeaux replied awkwardly. But I didn't think it would be that big of a problem. I mean, your brother came to visit you. Blanc lifted her hand and gestured toward the soaked magazine and the spilled tea. Do you see now? She said coldly. The result of you never listening to what anyone says? Her eyes narrowed. Situations like this happen. Bordeaux scratched the back of his head. Sorry, I guess. Blanc stood up. I guess, she repeated. She stepped forward, cracking her knuckles one by one. I guess, she said again. Bordeaux instinctively took a step back. Blanc, let's calm down for a bit. No, Blanc interrupted. Let big sister teach you about respect. Her lips curved into a thin smile. Maybe next time you won't disturb my tea time. A single tear welled up at the corner of Bordeaux's eye as he braced himself. A short while later, Bordeaux sat slumped on the floor. A large swelling had formed on the top of his head, throbbing visibly. Blanc, on the other hand, looked radiant. She leaned down, rubbing her cheek affectionately against his head, smiling wider than before. Big sister is so happy you came to visit. Bordeaux stared ahead blankly. If you were truly happy, he said flatly, you wouldn't have beaten me to a pulp. Blanc straightened and released him. As your big sister, she said matter-of-factly, it's my duty to teach you discipline. If I don't, who will? She crossed her arms. Now then, why did you come to me today? Bordeaux rubbed his head. I just wanted to play some board games. Blanc blinked. Board games. Chapter 49. Monopoly. Back at Violet's palace, Zonda sat alone on one of the luxurious couches, elbows resting on his knees as he stared blankly at the floor. His thoughts were heavy, tangled with dread, and every second that passed only made the pit in his stomach grow deeper. Then, without warning, the air shimmered. Violet and Veron materialized in the room. Violet stretched her arms lazily above her head. That was boring, she said, her tone flat with disinterest. Veron adjusted his posture and replied respectfully. It may have been boring, Violet-sama, but it was necessary, and you performed exceptionally well. Violet waved her hand dismissively. Yeah, I don't care. Zonda quickly stood up. Violet-sama, you're back. Oh, chef? Violet replied casually as she walked past him. She dropped onto the couch, propping her feet up on the table before closing her eyes. Yes, I'm back. Bring me some of that amazing wine I had last time. Zonda froze. Sweat immediately began to bead down his face. Violet-sama. About that. Violet opened one eye, fixing him with a sharp stare. What is it? Zonda swallowed. About the wine. It's kind of gone. The atmosphere changed instantly. A dangerous aura spilled out from Violet, thick and suffocating, causing both Zonda and Veyron to stiffen where they stood. What do you mean? Violet said quietly. Zonda braced himself. Well, Violet-sama, Bordeaux showed up, and he kind of took it. For a split second, Violet blinked. Then, Bordeaux, you bastard! Her scream echoed throughout the palace. Demons of the purple lineage scattered across the domain shivered as the furious cry rang out, instinctively ducking or freezing in place. Violet stood up and began walking toward Zonda. Zonda staggered back, his legs trembling. She stopped directly in front of him, planted her fists on her hips, and looked up at him. Despite being shorter, her presence was completely overwhelming. And you let him take my treasured wine? Zonda wiped sweat from his brow. He said you wouldn't mind since you're siblings. And besides, Violet-sama, it's kind of unfair to expect me to take on Bordeaux even if I tried. Violet turned away with a sharp scoff. Useless, she said coldly. Completely useless, chef. Her fist clenched tightly, trembling with rage. The next time I meet that brat, she growled, I'm going to plummet him into the ground. Zonda hesitated, then spoke up carefully. About that, Violet-sama? Violet snapped her head back toward him. What? He did tell me where he was headed. Violet jolted. Tell me. He went to see the white Primordial, Zonda said. Blanc. Blanc? Violet muttered. She straightened, eyes burning with resolve. Chef, butler, she said sharply. We're going to Blanc. Zonda and Veyron answered in unison. Yes, Violet-sama. Elsewhere, a round table sat at the center of a quiet room. Bordeaux was already seated, one arm lazily draped over the back of his chair. Blanc sat beside him with her teacup in hand, Moss across the table with his arms crossed and an irritated expression carved into his face, while Cien sat upright, calmly observing everything. Bordeaux raised his hand. Light flickered around his fingers, gathering and compressing. With a soft thud, an object appeared on the table, neatly sealed, colorful, and unmistakably artificial. A board game. Blank's eyes widened slightly as she leaned forward. Is this the result of your unique skill? Bordeaux nodded. Yeah. Bordeaux then thought, okay, don't judge me. I might or might not have told Testarossa about my unique skill prototype. To be fair, it was a slip-up during a very calm period when their bond was at its peak. Besides, Testarossa had told me about her unique skill, so it's all fine. The box rested there, perfectly formed. Testarossa's gaze lingered on it longer than the others. She reached out, turning it just enough to read the writing printed across the surface. Monopoly, she read aloud. Monopoly, what is that? Monopoly, Bordeaux repeated. A board game about buying land, selling property, and charging rent. The goal is simple. Outlast everyone else until you're the only one who isn't bankrupt. I see, Testarossa said slowly. Her eyes shifted back to him. But you still haven't explained what board games are, nor why you know of something that doesn't exist in either the Underworld or the Cardinal World. She always did this, quietly digging, peeling at the edges of his past. Bordeaux knew exactly how dangerous that curiosity was. So far, the only people who knew about his reincarnation were Noir, Shizue, and the Silver Wings. To be fair, if the freaking Silver Wings knew, then why shouldn't Testarossa know? She's much closer to Bordeaux than all four of the mentioned people, but Bordeaux had no intention of telling her today. So he leaned back in his chair, resting a finger against his chin as if genuinely pondering. Board games, huh? How do you even explain them? He hummed. Games played on a board, I guess. Though then card games like Dex or Uno should count too. Moss clicked his tongue. Enough already. Why are we being dragged into this? Because Monopoly with just 2 people is painfully boring, Bordeaux replied casually. And we need a banker. Besides, I gave you the option of a duel to earn your freedom. A vein pulsed on Moss's forehead. Beat him in a duel, he thought bitterly. As if that's even remotely possible. He turned sharply toward Blanc. Blanc-sama, why do you keep entertaining him? He's getting far too comfortable. Blanc smiled serenely. Because he's my little brother, she said simply. And you'll do whatever he wants. Moss froze. She's really leaning into this big sister role. A chill ran down his spine. This isn't good. Cien, meanwhile, nodded slightly. I don't mind. It sounds fun. Moss stared at him, deadpan. Do demons even have a sense of fun? Bordeaux, however, was already elsewhere mentally. His gaze drifted back to the table. Still, 3 players feels a bit lacking. We need more. Almost on cue, the air distorted. 3 figures materialized in the room. Violet, Zonda, Veron. Violet didn't even take a second to process the scene. She thrust a finger straight at Bordeaux, her aura flaring violently. Bordeaux, give me back my wine. Bordeaux smiled. Big sister, he said lightly. How kind of you to volunteer as our next player. Violet's eye twitched. Huh? What are you? Actually, never mind. She rolled her shoulders. Talking to you is always pointless. I'll just beat it out of you. Pink spheres of energy formed in her palms, crackling as they expanded. I've been training, you know? She hurled them forward. Bordeaux didn't move. He simply smiled as the attacks closed in. Chapter 50. Bordeaux versus Violet. The violet spheres tore through the air toward Bordeaux, shrieking with compressed power. He didn't retreat. Bordeaux shifted, just a slight tilt of his body, a half step in midair, and the first sphere screamed past his shoulder. Another skimmed by his ribs, close enough to scorch his coat. The rest missed entirely, slamming into the walls behind him. Stone detonated. Pillars cracked. The chamber erupted as chunks of the castle were torn free. Before the rubble could crash down, barriers flared into existence. Blanc lifted her hand without looking, a smooth, translucent wall catching debris inches from her tea set. Moss threw up his own barrier with a snarl, while Veron and Zonda reinforced the space around them, stone and dust freezing mid-fall. Violet-sama, please calm yourself, Veron shouted. Violet ignored him. She vanished from where she stood, reappearing in front of Bordeaux in a blur of purple light. Her fist came forward like a cannon shot, the air screaming as it compressed around her knuckles. Bordeaux hovered, smiling. He shifted aside. Her punch tore past him, ripping through empty space and detonating against the far wall. Violet didn't stop. Her body twisted smoothly, momentum flowing into a spinning kick aimed straight at his head. Bordeaux caught her leg. His fingers locked around her ankle, his grip iron tight. A grin split his face. "Wanna go, big sister?" he said, his voice sharp with excitement. "Then shall we?" He spun. Violet's body whipped through the air as Bordeaux turned, her momentum stolen and redirected. With a final violent twist, he hurled her away. She became a streak of purple light, smashing through stone, tearing across the chamber, and crashing into a distant wall with an explosion that shook the ground. Without wasting a breath, Bordeaux kicked off the air and shot after her. Blanc sighed softly. "What brutes," she muttered. "All they ever do is fight." Moss slammed a hand on the table as he stood. "This is outrageous. Completely outrageous. There is no respect left at all. How dare they indulge in such barbaric behavior in front of Blanc-sama?" "It's fine," Blanc said calmly. Moss froze. "Let them fight it out," she continued, her eyes drifting back to the board game on the table. "It won't take long anyway." "But," Blanc-sama, Veron interrupted quickly, bowing his head. "We sincerely apologize for our lord's behavior." "I don't care," Blanc replied. Her fingers traced the edge of the Monopoly box. I really do want to play this. Bordeaux said it's extremely fun. Veron and Zonda exchanged stunned glances. This Blanc, unbothered and indulgent, was nothing like the one they had prepared themselves to face. The battlefield trembled. Violet burst free from the shattered wall grinning, rage rolling off her in waves. While still airborne, she thrust her hands forward, conjuring more violet spheres. Larger this time, denser, vibrating with destructive power. She launched them in rapid succession. Bordeaux saw them coming. Heat bloomed around him. Flames erupted. Not ordinary fire, but red-hot, compressed, roaring with an intensity that warped the air itself. The incoming spheres met the flames and disintegrated instantly, evaporating in flashes of violent light. Violet's eyes widened. That fire! She snarled, staring at the inferno surrounding him. That's not your usual flames. What is that? Bordeaux chuckled, drifting forward through the heat as if it were nothing. Just a souvenir from my time in the Cardinal World. Sauve what? Violet snapped. What are you even talking about? I fought the superior fire spirit, Ifrit, while in the Cardinal World, Bordeaux said casually. He wasn't as strong as I hoped, but taking his abilities made up for it. Violet's aura spiked violently. You fought a superior spirit? She shouted, disbelief cracking through her voice. And won. Bordeaux tilted his head. Why are you acting like spirits are such a big deal? He asked. That whole thing about spirits being natural counters to demons. It's all fake. He smiled, flames coiling lazily around his body. I expected to be outclassed, he continued. Thought I'd either die like a warrior or evolve more. His grin widened. But honestly, it was a total snooze fest. Shut up, Violet screamed. Her aura flared violently as two massive purple spheres swelled into existence above her palms. Bordeaux didn't slow down. He flew straight at them. The moment the spheres reached arm's length, Bordeaux thrust both hands forward. Red-hot flames poured from his palms, compressing inward instead of spreading out. The purple energy resisted for a heartbeat and then collapsed, burned away from the inside as if suffocating. The path ahead cleared. Violet barely had time to widen her eyes before Bordeaux vanished from her vision. The impact came first. Her body jerked as something slammed into her guard, driving her back several steps through the air. Before she could stabilize, a second blow cracked against her ribs, followed by a third that snapped her head to the side. He was on her. Bordeaux stayed close, too close, his movements sharp and efficient. A fist to the jaw, a short hook to the body. Another strike that slipped past her defense before she could even adjust. Then his knee came up. The hit lifted her off balance, and before gravity could reclaim her, Bordeaux drove an uppercut straight into her core. Violet's body shot upward, air ripping past her as she was launched skyward. Her vision spun. Bordeaux reappeared above her. His body twisted midair, wings flaring just enough to anchor his rotation. His heel came down hard, crashing into her torso and sending her rocketing toward the ground. She hit like a meteor. The earth ruptured. Stone collapsed inward, forming a wide crater as dust and shockwaves rolled outward. For a split second, everything stilled. Then Bordeaux was there again. He drove a punch straight down, all his speed condensed into a single point. The blow detonated against Violet's torso, forcing the crater even deeper as the ground screamed under the pressure. Violet coughed, blood spraying from her lips. Damn it, her thoughts raced. With Noir there was hope. Noir was stronger, yes, but he was stagnant. He didn't push himself, didn't chase growth. That meant someday maybe she could surpass him. But Bordeaux, he's already this strong. And he still keeps climbing, keeps trying to get stronger. Her fingers trembled. Can I even catch up to someone like that? She grit her teeth. I don't know, she said aloud, forcing herself upright through the pain. But what I do know is, her eyes hardened. As a big sister, I'm not going down easily. I'll make this as hard as possible for you. Bordeaux tilted his head. Huh? What are you talking about? Violet lunged. Her arms wrapped around his neck, pulling him into a tight embrace. Her voice softened unnaturally as she pressed herself close. "You've always wanted a hug from Big Sister, right?" she said sweetly. "Here, take it." Bordeaux froze, confusion flashing across his face at the unnatural warmth from Violet. That confusion cost him. Purple light erupted from Violet's body, flooding the space between them. The explosion went off at point-blank range, swallowing them both. A second passed. Then Bordeaux burst free, wings snapping open as he shot backward through the smoke. Blood ran from the corner of his mouth, but he was smiling. "Giving me hope of an actual bond," he said lightly, wiping his lip. "That's cold, Big Sister." Violet appeared in front of him. Her fist slammed into his face before the words fully left his mouth. Bordeaux went flying, crashing into the ground hard enough to carve a trench through stone. He blinked. "What?" For the first time, his instincts screamed late. "I didn't react." He always read Violet's movements, always stayed ahead. But that punch, he hadn't seen it coming. Then it clicked. The explosion. Poison. Something woven into the blast, subtle and precise. It was not lethal, but just enough to dull his reaction speed, even if only for a few seconds. Violet stood over him, breathing hard, eyes blazing. "That look," she snarled. "You've already figured it out." Her foot came down. Again and again. She hammered him into the ground repeatedly, each strike driving him deeper until the area collapsed into a massive crater. With a sharp inhale, she raised both hands. Purple energy gathered rapidly, swelling into a dense sphere right above his chest. She thrust it downward. At the last instant, Bordeaux vanished. The sphere detonated, tearing open the earth and leaving behind a gaping hole that swallowed light. Bordeaux reappeared far behind her, hovering casually, his wings flexing as the poison's effects faded. A wide grin spread across his face. "Interesting," he said, his eyes gleaming. "Truly interesting, Big Sister." Chapter 51. Bordeaux versus Violet Part 2. As Bordeaux was hovering in the air trying to make sense of the situation, pink chains snapped into existence around his body. There was no warning, no ripple in the air, and no surge of magic he could sense. One moment he was hovering freely, and the next the chains were there, coiling tight around his arms, torso, and wings. Bordeaux's eyes widened. He twisted instinctively, but the chains didn't slacken. They bit down harder, humming softly as if responding to his resistance. Above him, Violet smiled. Her fingers flexed, and the chains answered. Bordeaux was yanked sideways. His body tore through the remains of an abandoned building, stone and timber exploding outward as he smashed through walls in a straight line. Floors collapsed. Pillars snapped. Debris rained down in a deafening cascade. Before he could recover, the chains jerked again. Down. Bordeaux was slammed into the ground with crushing force. The earth gave way beneath him, collapsing into a massive crater as shockwaves rippled outward. Violet didn't stop. She lifted her hands, purple poison bombs forming instantly. With a sharp flick of her wrists, she sent them racing down the chains, one on each side, sliding along the links at blinding speed. They reached Bordeaux and detonated. The explosion swallowed the crater in thick smoke and corrosive energy, the ground screaming as it melted and fractured further. Violet exhaled slowly, a satisfied curve touching her lips. For a moment, there was only silence. Then the smoke parted. Bordeaux stood at the center of the crater, chains still wrapped around him. Smiling, a low laugh escaped his throat. Cracks spread along the pink links as he flexed once, twice, and then the chains shattered, snapping apart like brittle glass. The broken ends hung uselessly in the air. Bordeaux reached out and grabbed them. Violet's eyes widened. He yanked. The pull was violent. The chains went taut, and Violet was ripped forward, her body cutting through the air toward him so fast the distance vanished in a heartbeat. She barely had time to brace. Crack. Bordeaux slammed his forehead into hers. Violet groaned, her body recoiling as pain exploded through her skull. Before she could recover, Bordeaux seized her face with one hand and drove her straight down. Her body hit the ground hard, stone fracturing beneath her cheek. Damn it! The word came out muffled against the rubble. She lay there, breathing hard. I still can't beat you. Bordeaux straightened, looking down at her with an expression far different from before. A genuine smile. Violet, he said calmly. You truly surprised me. She stiffened. You've gotten much stronger. Violet's fingers twitched. I don't know how I feel about you creating techniques specifically meant to beat me, Bordeaux continued, his tone thoughtful. Because I won't always be your only enemy. He paused. But if I had let my guard down even a little, his eyes met hers. You probably would have won. Violet's cheeks flushed before she could stop it. Praise. From him. Bordeaux had never praised her before in their fights. He always ridiculed her, called her weak, and had never taken their fights seriously. All Violet ever wanted from Bordeaux was praise. But there was no way in hell she was going to show she was happy. Her teeth clenched, and she turned her face away sharply. I don't care for your praise, she snapped. Bordeaux chuckled softly. Oh my, such a tsundere big sister. He tilted his head. Now then, shall we continue? Or will you admit defeat? Violet scoffed, crossing her arms despite the ache in her body. I was sick when I came here to fight you, she said. So unless you want to claim a win over someone who's sick, go ahead. Bordeaux blinked. But demons don't get sick. Violet pouted, shooting him a glare. But I do. Do you have a problem with that? A beat. Bordeaux released her and stepped back. No, he said lightly. No problem. He shrugged. I'm fine with calling this a draw. Then, with a faint smirk, keep training. Maybe one day you'll manage to scar me. Violet turned away again, her cheeks warm. MMPH. I don't need your encouragement. Bordeaux stretched, rolling his shoulders as if nothing had happened. Now then, big sister, he said cheerfully. Since I entertained you, won't you entertain me? Violet glanced back. Huh? What do you want? Bordeaux's smile widened. Follow me. Back at the round table, Violet stared at the board, her brows knit together. We do what again? She asked flatly. Blanc chuckled into her teacup. You really are slow, aren't you, Violet? Shut up. Violet snapped instantly. Before things could escalate, Veron cleared his throat. Violet-sama, I believe I understand the rules. Everyone turned toward him. In simple terms, Veron continued, pointing at the board, the game revolves around purchasing property. For example, he tapped an empty space. This land here, Dressrosa. If one buys it, then whenever another player lands on it during their turn, they must pay rent equal to the amount written on the property card. He glanced at Bordeaux. Is that correct? Bordeaux, lounging lazily in his chair, nodded with an impressed smile. You're sharp, butler. You caught on quickly. He lifted a finger. Though the rent also depends on how developed the property is. Bare land, houses, hotels, they all change the amount quite a bit. Violet's eyes lit up slightly. Oh, I get it now. She slammed her hands on the table. Okay, let's play. Hold on, Blanc said calmly. Everyone paused. If we're going to play, Blanc continued, smiling sweetly, there should be stakes. Playing a simple game would be boring. Bordeaux blinked. Stakes? Yes, Blanc said. The winner gets to tell one person playing the game to do anything they want. Bordeaux stiffened. Anything? That seems a bit extra. I'm fine with it. Violet cut in instantly. Veron and Zonda exchanged a glance. If Violet-sama agrees, Veron said carefully, then we have no objections. Moss crossed his arms. Fine by me. Cien nodded once. Agreed. Bordeaux looked around the table, realizing he was completely outnumbered. Fine, he sighed. Then let's play. Hours passed. Properties were bought and stolen. Alliances formed and collapsed. Violet grew increasingly loud every time she lost money, while Blanc calmly sipped tea and smiled. Eventually, it's over, Veron announced. Blanc had won the final against Violet. Violet slammed her palm against the table. That's not fair. She cheated. Veron adjusted his glasses. Violet-sama, there were no irregularities. Blanc-sama's victory was legitimate. Violet slowly turned her glare on him. Butler, she said dangerously. Whose side are you supposed to be on? Veron visibly shrank. I am the banker in this game, Violet-sama. I cannot show bias. Blanc took another sip of tea. Violet, don't be a sore loser. Nobody likes those. Violet clicked her tongue. You don't get to lecture me, Blanc. Bordeaux leaned forward, holding up a bottle with a grin. Calm down, Violet. Want some wine? You idiot. Violet snapped. You can't offer me my own wine. She snatched the bottle from his hand. I don't need your kindness. Chef, butler, we're leaving. Wait, Bordeaux said. Blanc hasn't made her request yet. You can't go. Blanc raised a hand gently. It's fine. They may leave. She tapped her finger against her lips thoughtfully. My request involves you, after all. Bordeaux pointed at himself. Me? Well, okay, then. Violet narrowed her eyes at Blanc. What are you plotting? Blanc smiled. Era. What do you think I'm plotting, Violet? TCH? Whatever. Violet turned to Bordeaux. We're playing this again tomorrow. Not because it's fun or anything. Just because I hate losing. Bordeaux shrugged. Okay, I guess. In a flash of magic, Violet, Veron, and Zonda vanished from the room. The atmosphere shifted. Blanc slowly turned her gaze back to Bordeaux, her eyes sultry and unreadable. A chill ran straight down Bordeaux's spine.